Hey, peace and love, family. Back at it again. I know it's been a little while, but I got a treat for everybody today. It is something people been asking for a long time, and um, it's kind of a long time in the making because I've been doing a lot of videos on the prerequisites for this, and you definitely, if this is your first video for me, you want to go back into the archives. Um, Check out my other things on Discharge, kind of in that topic, authentication of the birth certificate, full faith and credit, things of that sort. You want to get a lot of those concepts down because this is definitely not a beginner video for most. So, with that being stated, you know, um, you would definitely want to know or understand the Moore/creditor status um, when it comes to discharging debt versus the status of the actual debt itself. Um, and then that versus the status of the receiver of the private instrument, you know. Um, and if you're not familiar with all three of those, you might want to wait before you proceed and do a little bit more research. Um, in this video in particular, I'm gonna be using public sources. So this is all public information. Not really much in here is gonna be my conjecture. This is all stuff where I'm gonna be showing the sources, reading from the sources, and I'm gonna try and not make it too long. Um, it was probably gonna also be because of that um, two-part video. I um I definitely want y'all to check out the video here I have, if you haven't seen it already, the discharging debt versus paying bills. Know the difference. I think it's before you make your presentment. Um, Dealing with that, um, this is going to be more for discharging debt on the private side. What I'm be going to, at least in this first part. Um, Paying bills is a little bit more of a public process. It's the things you have to do, and I have other people that I work with that are more experts on that one than me. Um, you know, it's definitely a lot of stuff to get in. So, um, like I say, if you haven't been through a lot of my earlier videos, then you definitely want to go check those out. So, from there, I'm gonna be using this website a little bit more than the others. It's the Legal Dictionary, the freedictionary.com. Um, for this particular topic, they go a little bit deeper when it comes to negotiable instruments and the types of instruments that I'm going to be going over really more in depth with today. That'll be more the bill of exchange. Um, but I just want to define, you know, what a negotiable instrument is. Uh, and A commercial paper, such as check, promissory notes that contains the signature of the maker or drawer, an unconditional promise, or order to pay a certain sum in cash that is payable either upon demand or at a specifically designated time in order that a designated person, oh, excuse me, specific, specifically designated time to the order of a designated person or to its bearer. Um, That's a lot, and it's a lot of individual terms in there. Here, I'm gonna bring this one up here that I did too. I broke it down a little bit more. So if you want to get more in depth, um, you can definitely look at these words that are highlighted, underlined, or these phrases in particular, and search them individually. Check them. Um, Either this website, Black's Law Dictionary, or Investopedia, which I have coming up next. It's also another good one. And I'm gonna be kind of skipping through a little bit just not to draw this out too long, because going into each and every designation that I have underlined or anything in here would definitely draw it out probably too long. So I'm just gonna keep it going at check, promissory note, bill of exchange, security, or document representing money payable, which can be transferred to another by handing it over, delivery, and or endorsing it, signing it, autographing it, whatever lingo, you want to use. I don't want to get too deep into that right now. That's a whole nother topic. But negotiable instruments, you could look into the definition of negotiable. I didn't go directly into that in here, but it implies negotiation. So understand that, and you're gonna see a little bit later when we go into it. There's acceptance when it comes to these, so you can't force acceptance of any instrument, and I just want to put that out there and people to understand that now, before we start really getting deep. But this is not a much deeper definition here from Investopedia, but one of the things I like to put it puts on there is it's a formalized type of IOU. You know, not much different from a reserve note. Um, but also at the bottom, because they're transferable and assignable, some negotiable instruments may be traded on secondary market. So I wanted to point out that part just to particularly say that you know we know that you know these instruments, for one, they can be redeemed at the treasury, but also that some of these companies on the low are trading these on secondary markets, and just to show you, that there's stuff going on, and when these instruments disappear, you know, and I'm gonna get into that, and how to handle that maybe in the second portion. But if they don't come back to you, but they're dishonored, that's probably what's going on with it. It's probably being traded on the secondary market, and you're gonna have to make a claim for that. But this definition here, um, website is Cornell Law School. Cornell.edu or law.cornell.edu. Um, this definition is in the UCC. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you have to go by the UCC, but what I'm saying is that everything that we're doing is in line with the UCC. So whether you're into the UCCs or not, if you're getting into discharge, it's applicable law, and it's Um, you could say in a way, since it's commercial law, it's equivalent, to anything you may be doing, whether you're operating in the public or the private. So it's definitely something to take a look into. You know, um, couple things I want to point out in here. Um, it does not state any other undertaking or instruction. Just one of the elements of a negotiable instrument. Um, Stating not to do any other action. Basically, that's going into and you can look this up independently on your own. Restrictive endorsements. Uh, Basically, it's certain types of endorsements that you can't put on negotiable instruments or bill of exchanges, and it's going to be a little bit more specific once we get into bill of exchange definition, going through the different kinds. Um, Now, the thing is, it may contain protection of collateral to secure payment, um, and a waiver of benefit of any law intended for advantage or protection of the obligor. Uh, it's like hold harmless. Yeah, basically, stuff that you could definitely check out on your own. Um, Bill of exchange. It's written order once used primarily in international trade that binds one party to pay fixed amount of money to another on demand or at a predetermined date. Bills of exchange are similar to checks and promissory notes and can be drawn by individuals or banks, generally transferable by endorsement, by the autograph. This is Investopedia, and it's saying a bill of exchange can be drawn by individuals or banks. That's the important part, so you understand um, what we're doing here. Privately, you're not necessarily an individual, but your strawman entity, you could say, is an individual and not necessarily a bank. That would be the one backing the bill of exchange. Just want to get these concepts in your head down. How it works, and particularly, it's a written document. you know, so that doesn't necessarily say what it has to be, what particular form, and we're gonna go into it. Doesn't have to be in a particular form, but it just has to be payable on demand, credit terms. It must be accepted by the jury to be valid. That goes into acceptance. So if they don't accept it, it's not valid. But the thing is, there's particular wordings where you make them obligated, particularly to return it. If they're not going to accept it. They can be conversely transferred at a discount before the date specifically or specified for payment. Um, that usually deals with particular types that are not only post dated but are being transferred on the secondary market. That's what that has to do with being transferred at a discount. Basically someone else um, selling the debt. We know this is what's going on, what they're doing. Uh, Knocked over my light. Um, Going into types of bill of exchange, they're bills issued by a bank. It can be referred to as bank drafts. If they're issued by individuals, they can be referred to as trade drafts. Um, that's not really important about the naming of them like that in particular, but just um, once again showing that they can be issued by individuals. Um, okay, bill of exchange. This is back to legal dictionary, the free dictionary.com, and like I said, this is where or this particular site gets pretty deep on this topic. So this is why I'm using this one as opposed to Black's Law Dictionary, which they have an online version. You can pull it up, and it's an okay definition of bill of exchange, but this one goes much deeper. Um, Now, it's a three-party negotiable instrument. Um, Very important there. Uh, it is a negotiable instrument because in some definitions of negotiable instrument, it won't tell you a bill of exchange, but in the definition of bill of exchange, that's the first thing it says that it's a negotiable instrument. Um, Now, and particularly um, for private negotiable instruments, um, you know, these parties, it won't be a bank if it's going to be issued by a person or an individual, as they were saying. So, um, going to have to understand who these parties are um, to really understand um, what is going on in the transaction. So, the drawer presents an order for payment for a sum on a second party, the drawee, for payment to a third party, the payee, on demand or at a fixed date. Um, it's gonna get a little bit clearer, but I'll try and uh, break that down, before we go in. Um, you could say, in a sense, the drawer would be that individual. We're talking about. Um, Now, to present an order for payment of a certain sum on the second party, um, HJR 192 says, that the United States government, is deemed to pay or to discharge dollar for dollar, which, you know, if that is the party, it would make the third one, the payee, the payment, going to whoever that private entity it is that is going to be receiving the funds. So, um, you know, if you know how to word your bill of exchange and negotiable instrument in particular, you understood what I just said. So, um, let's just keep going on. It does not contain a promise. The drawer does not expressly pledge to pay it. That's what a bill of exchange. So, this is how it differs from a promissory note or check. It doesn't contain a promise, and the drawer does not expressly pledge to pay it. I don't know if y'all understood what I said, but we're just gonna keep going on. The term bill of exchange and draft. Um, It's synonymous. It's just one is international law, the Bill of Exchange, and draft is UCC, the commercial code's term for it, but pretty much the same thing. Um, a bill of exchange drawn on a bank is a check. So, specifically, in public terms, you know, you're doing a bill of exchange if it's a check. But a bill of exchange can be issued by an individual, as we just saw, and not a bank. So you can say it's not necessarily a check. Um, let's move on. Bill of exchange, the form of documentary credit. I just like the way it puts that. Um, and that's particularly important if you understand the difference between credit and debt instruments. Um, it's a negotiable instrument. Um, and go look those terms up if you're not familiar with those credit and debt instruments to know the difference. Excuse me. Bill of exchange. Yeah, this is in contracts. Now, it's defined to be an open letter for request from, or an order, or an order. Um, I'm gonna show this a little bit later on, um, probably in the second one, but basically, open letter is not or doesn't necessarily resemble a check, is what that means. Um, but it does have to have an order. Um, one person or another, um, to pay a third person on demand. Um, the first one person would be the principal. Um, on another. Um, the on another is the one that would be paying, um, which could be the foreign bank or treasury or trust, um, wherever the funds are going to be coming from to pay the third person. Um, you know, it's different ways to set it up. So I don't want to go too far on that. Um, but let's keep going. The subject will be considered with reference. Basically, these are the elements. One, the parties. Two, the form. Three, the different kinds of bill of exchange. Four, the endorsements and transfer. Five, the acceptance, and six, the protest. So going into the law, those particular elements are going to be what makes up and what holds you in law to basically be able to issue and discharge. Um, you can't just expect for them to necessarily give it to you. Um, you have to be in proper form. You got to have your kind right. You have to have your status right. All those different factors I mentioned in the very beginning have to be right before you even go into this. And then, all of these particular elements have to line up, before you can even consider, what's going to happen. So, let's go in a little bit deeper now. The parties to the bill of exchange: the drawer, um, he who makes the order, the drawee, the person whom is addressed, the acceptor, and he who accepts the bill, the payee. Learn who those particular parties are that you need to be addressing there. Could be public officials or things of that sort that may need to be involved, but you need to know who each particular party is that's going to be on your instrument. Um, oh yeah, four. I want to point out sometimes fictitious persons. Some of the parties are sometimes fictitious persons. Straw man. In the case where the drawer and payee were fictitious person, the acceptor was held liable on to a bona fide holder. Um, that goes into the status of the persons. If you haven't looked up in the law the definition of persons, um, it'll really surprise you. But you need to go into that and fictitious persons. So, um, I mean, that's putting it out there. Um, where the straw man goes. Um, form, form of the bill. Um, first, writing. You have to have a proper form of writing. So it's particular wording that has to be there, but it's not so much um, as extreme as you may think. You know, and you can go back because I'm not gonna go particularly line for line in here, but I am gonna go over a few things. Point out some things that I suggest and some things that can be added even to my process. If I haven't done so already by this video, because I did do some good research into this and find out a few things. You always find out new stuff every time you research a topic, no matter how many times you've been searching through it. But let's go in where payment, the payment of money. This element definitely has to be there. Not depending on any contingency. Um, either to regard, find out which payment is to be made. So, restrictive endorsements. Going back to that, uh, even look up contingency. You know, and that'll give you a better idea if you're not already familiar. No particular form or set of words is necessarily to be adopted. So basically, if you understand law, you can freestyle it. You can write a bill of exchange out on a piece of toilet paper if you want it. It's just when you understand. Um, Promise have been severely held to be sufficient for a bill of a note. Yeah, that's in no particular form. It has to be properly dated. You gotta have a date. Become due or generally regulated by the time when it was made. Go look up that due if you haven't seen the video I did on it already. But debt owed versus debt due. Due. That's a real good one. You know, I don't have time to really go into it right now. Yeah, sorry, I had to clear my throat. Um, where was I? Let me see. Let's start. There was has to be properly dated. I think is where I was at. Becomes due. Yeah, that's where I was. Becomes due generally regulated by the time when it was made, clearly expressed. Some um, has to be for the sum, and it's not indispensable. You can look that one up, but basically, for no less. Um, if time not be mentioned, it is considered to be payable on demand. You could definitely check out payable on demand, but basically, whenever someone takes it in, excuse me, it has to be payable at that time at least. It's proper for the drawer to date the place of payment, but it's not essential. Uh, it's common practice to write the address of the drawee. It's generally what you see on there, how it's done, like on checks. Um, Bill is considered payable and presented at the resident of the drawee. That's just commonly what they would say about it, or promissory note, things of that sort. Um, must be an order or request to pay, a matter of right and not of favor. It has to be basically, you know, demandable. Like foreign bill of exchange. Now we're gonna go into this because international bills of exchange or foreign bills of exchange, you can say as of like your foreign mortgage trust. Um, that's if you've already been working with me and done your counter deed, you pretty much already have a foreign express trust set up to some extent. Um, and maintaining it, along with you know the other steps necessary to, setting up to be able to operate, you'll be able to issue these bill of exchanges properly. That's what I was talking about when I said you have to, you know, be in the proper status. But the elements are not too different, but we're gonna go into that a little bit too. But you know, it's like the other one, who is paid to? Who are you writing out the instrument to? Uh, what a day, but the pay is blank. Um, which is possible. You could write out a instrument for a value, but not put in any particular name, and that's more common if you think they're going to exchange it on a secondary market. That could be done too, so any other person could write in. You know, that's just something to consider. Yeah, and the bill has been negotiated by endorsement. The holder may fill in the blank his own name. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Um, must be operative and equivalent words of transfer. You know, that's just like with any bill of transfer, title, deeds, things of that sort. It has to be clear of what's going on. These words need not be inserted. Um, the instrument will be valid as a bill of exchange. Basically, saying there ain't got to be any particular wording. Uh, the sum in which the bill is drawn must be clearly expressed in the body of it. Must be fixed and certain, not contingent. Maybe in the money of the country. That's one other stipulation we hadn't heard, but pretty much the same one so far. That payment of part of the bill residue being unpaid cannot be endorsed, can't be signed for. The contract is invisible. That goes into what I talk about when I say discharging debt versus paying bills, because when it comes to discharging debt, um, you have to discharge the entire contract. Because if not, this is what happens. You leave leftover residue in the contract. Um, and the acceptor will be thereby compelled to make two payments instead of one, basically saying you were still owe, and that's when acceptance comes in, because a lot of times they won't want to accept that. Um, but when part of the bill has been paid, the residue must be assigned. Go check that out. Since then, it becomes a contract for residue only. So in that case, it's saying you would be modifying the contract, and they don't necessarily want to modify the contract when you're paying bills, but when it comes to discharging debt, you're clearing it out. So there is no residue left over. You know, and that's what discharging dollar for dollar is. Clearing it out. Um, Value received. Yeah, another good wording I definitely say put in there. If you're doing instruments, for value received in particular. Um, as usual, when the drawer of the bill is a debtor to the drawer, you insert the words and put into my account. But when the drawee person who's directed is the debtor, the person who you send it to is the debtor, and you're a creditor. Put the words and put it into your account. Oh, first one was saying put in my account. Second one saying put into your account. Uh, Basically for you as the creditor. That's if you wanna add that word in, but that's not necessary. Um, and it says it a little bit further down. I didn't highlight it, but I see it in there. Excuse me. The drawee must either subscribe the bill or his name simply be inserted in the body of the instrument. Um, Subscribe. I put up here, but basically to write underneath or to put signature at the end of printed or rented written instrument, to autograph it. But basically the drawee must autograph the instrument. It's a Christian name and surname. I'm not gonna even go on there, but we already know. Um, Full style of their firm. Um, that would be in the case of a corporation or a business. Which, if you're treating your straw man like a business, you could say, it would be the full name, Christian name, surname, Moorish name you trust. Basically whatever entity you choose to operate, do business under. Um, Place of payment should be stated in the bill. Drawer must also add a request or direction that in the case the bill should not be honored by the drawee, it should be returned without protest or without expense. Um, and then you can subscribe a couple words here. Um, my trolls are trying to tear me up if I try and pronounce them. Um, Memorandum on the bill. That's a good thing to add in a memorandum. Uh, and this is some wording that I hadn't particularly ever used, but wink, wink, hint, hint. Might be good to throw in case of non-acceptance or non-payment, reexchange, and expense not to exceed X amount of dollars. Um, and you can put in whatever. Bill of exchanges are either foreign or inland. Hmm. They're either foreign or inland. So, foreign, when drawn by a person, that's that word again, out of, on another, in the United States, or vice versa. It's very interesting, and I put the three different colors there for y'all to notice the different entities there. Um, because it's saying you can draw on a person that is out of, comma, like out of the United States, on another in, which would be in the United States, or vice versa. That means you can be a foreign person or more, non-citizen, indigenous to the land, and you can draw on another in the United States. Now, who would be obligated in the United States to do that? I think that goes back to HJR 192. Or by a person in a foreign country. Well, or you in a country foreign to DC and federal land, or on a person in another country, or by a person in one state on another of the United States. That's what foreign is. Okay, let's go down. This is what inland is. Principal difference between foreign and inland bills is the former, the foreign, must be protested, and the latter need not. So, a foreign bill of exchange has to be protested. That's what they're saying. If that accepted, that's what it sounds like to me. Now, there's some red tape, and there's why, there's all these court cases down here. You could definitely look deeper into this particular topic. I'm not going to go in that far, but I'll, brief through and, let you know one or two things here. But the English rule requiring protest and notice of non-acceptance of foreign bills has been adopted and followed as rule of mercantile law. Couple places. They got court cases backing up. But the Supreme Court held that an action on foreign bill exchange after protest for non-payment, non-acceptance, blah blah blah, were not required by customs of merchants in this country. That's the custom of merchants. That's definitely another deep topic, to go check out, and they got a lot of court cases and things behind that there. But I'm gonna go back into dead owed versus debt due. Gotta understand dead owed, which is, I'll go in pretty quick on that. That's a contract. Versus debt due, which is debt that is past due. Now, with past due debt, those are in the status to be discharged, where debt owed is more of a contract that is still active. It's not past due. So, That's the status of the debt. Now you have to understand that status, your status be right, and the status of the one receiving that instrument, because you have to understand, you know, um, accounting and how people are set up, um, whether they're on the cash method versus the accrual method, and only ones what you could say in the public, like IPO public, definitely on the accrual method, and government entities are bound to accept these instruments because they're in that realm. So if their status is not right to do that, you know, and they operate on the cash method, they are not able to monetize these type of instruments coming from anywhere, anyone, especially private individuals. You know, and I'm currently trying to get into that accrual method too, where I can accept those type of instruments. But these type of things take time. That's um, getting up to an even better status. It's not that I totally can't accept these instruments, but it's more of monetizing these instruments that goes into the public realm. You know, and I'm currently more operating in the private, but I'm working and doing some transitions, with some people that are operating in the public, but in different ways than people are doing it out there that seem to be a little bit more steady. So, you know, I'm working with them on that there. Um, this is the video I was talking about. Definitely a prerequisite. If you haven't looked into those topics I was just talking about, where breaking down the actual definitions the way I did in here of debt, the owe versus due. Now, if you had a status correction package already, you have this jewel whether you know it or not. This is it's a bill of exchanges. I will break it down in law real quick. Show these are out from West Publications forms books. If you don't understand what forms books is, or you've never been to, you need to go check out in the law library. Um, when lawyers do their copy and pasting for anything, you know, whether it be motions, injunctions, affidavits, whatever, they go to different form books. Uh, there's a civil forms book, criminal forms books, and they even have forms books for negotiable instruments. And that is what this is particular. This document, um, you definitely check it out. Um, this was out of West Forms book, law library. Uh, you could actually pick them up too online. I've never been able to find one. Um, I didn't do that much looking, but you know, we're gonna go in, but I have about 10 pages that's already in the status correction package, out of one that has bill of exchange, power of attorney, bonds, a few other things. But draft, which we know a draft is the UCC name for a bill of exchange. Um, and I can't remember the full name of the book, but it was a West Forms book. But you can see the page number 214. Um, but this is pretty much it. What they have on there. Number of days, after date, optional or at site. Of this first exchange, second, uh, of the same tender and date if not paid to the order of name payee, amount, applicable currency, autograph. Name of drawee, address, specified date. That's it. You know, and I'm gonna show you a couple other um, instances as well. You know, but showing you here. This next page from number 2 here at the top down to where it says number 3. It's a real similar wording. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, sorry, I'm back. So yeah, like I was saying, um, these are some real short examples. Both 2 and 3, pretty much read like the one we just read. Uh, this other one here, it's a little bit different, but it says alternate version, and says draft bill of exchange, showing that it definitely is a bill of exchange, what we were just going over. Draft name of city, state, date, uh, us of us in the know will definitely know how to do our address different, or just do coordinates. Um, indicate whether payable on demand, arrival, time limit, pay to the order of, name, dollar amount, value received and charged to the account of, blah blah blah, treasury. Oops, did I let it out? But yeah, and you know, to get the rest of this, you're definitely gonna have to be one of my full-time students on my Patreon, where I'm gonna really go in further, and I'm gonna do something unconventional, and show some private instruments, show some of the ones that I've used, particularly, with success. So I'm gonna show a few different forms, and show that it's not, well, pretty much like they said, there's no particular form, of instrument, that once you get the elements of it down, anything you put together potentially, you know, if it can meet all of the requirements, will be accepted, if all of the statuses, are lined up and correct as well. Like I say, it's a lot of factors to this, but you know, as far as the public side, or public information, that's all information, for the public that I can put out there for now. So, thanks a lot, everybody. Peace and love.